right, hi there, boys and girls. We are in December, aren't we? Yeah. This is really the second Sunday of Advent. There's 4 Sundays as we get ready. And of course, Christmas is going to come right on a Sunday this year. But we have 4 Sundays before that. The last Sunday was the first Sunday. And that was, we decorated the church and got things going. We lit that first Advent candles this Sunday. Today we light the second. And I'm picking up a story. I'm not going to be doing the story of Critterville for a couple of weeks until after Christmas. We'll go back to Critterville again and meet some of the animals, some of Tommy Turtle's friends and Bud Squirrel, all of those that we got to know a little bit in Critterville. But now we're going to take up a story. And this is a true story. It happened right here in Pennsylvania. It didn't happen just recently. I'm going to say, I don't have a date for it, but I'm going to say it was about 70 years ago. Probably about the time when I was the same age as Peggy, who was in our story. Now, I'm 77, so it would have to be 73 years ago for me to be 3, and that's how old Peggy was as we tell our story. I have a picture of Peggy here. I'm not sure she looked exactly like this, but there's Peggy. She had blue eyes and blonde hair, and she was excited. It was getting close to Christmas, and she knew a lot about Christmas. Now, she didn't remember Christmas when she was 1. Yeah, we're just little infants at that point in time, and we don't have that necessary good memory to understand all that. We might remember something that happened, but Peggy could remember a lot of things that had happened over the last couple of years, and particularly in the last year. She remembered some of the things they did at Christmas time. Dad, do you remember some of the things you do at Christmas? Yeah, we sing some songs, special songs. We call them carols. They're songs about Jesus and songs about Christmas. What else? We have cookies and other things that we bake. Matter of fact, I have a picture of what Peggy remembered about Christmas. And there's the cookies. Look at that down there, cookies. Yeah. And we sing a lot of the carols sometimes in church, and there's a picture of the church. And of course, there were special services of worship at the church, and she remembered those that were a part of that. Especially, there were ones at nighttime when the lights were down low and there were decorations on the tree. And she remembered presents, because we love to get presents at Christmas time. And in the house, she remembered last year they had a tree with beautiful decorations on it. And in the house they brought it. And it was a tree that had been outdoors, but they brought it in. So there were a lot of things, but especially she remembered that Christmas was about a baby. Now, there were a lot of things she didn't understand about that baby, but she knew that that baby had something to do with a barn. Well, it wasn't called a barn, it's called a stable. And instead of being placed in a cradle or in a bassinet or a baby's bed, the baby had been placed in a manger. And she didn't understand it because she didn't grow up on a farm where she would see cattle and know what a manger was, but she remembered something about a bunch of hay and that. So she remembered all of those things. Well, that was pretty good. But she had also talked to some of her friends, and somehow she'd heard about stockings. Now, you had stockings that you wore, right? You wear stockings. You put a stocking on your head, right? You don't put a stocking on your head. You put your hands in stockings and they keep your hands warm. No? Well, sometimes, I remember when I didn't have gloves as a kid, or my gloves all got wet, I could put a pair of stockings on. And it would keep my hands warm, and I'd go sledding with those stockings. So you could put them on your hands, but that's not really where they belong. And they don't belong on your head because you're supposed to have antlers on your head, right? So I've had antlers were on my head. But stockings were put on your feet. Well, when I was a little kid, we'd go sledding and stuff like that, or we'd go out wearing our boots and our stockings or our socks, and the snow would get over the top of our boots and it'd get down there, and they would get wet, and our feet would get cold, and we'd come in the house, And we would put our stockings behind the stove. Now, I forgot to bring, I'm going to show it to you next week, but I forgot to bring a thing that we used when I was a little child to put our socks on to dry them out so that we could put them back on and go back outdoors. And we would set our boots behind the stove too for them to dry out and that. Because that's how we heated our house. Now I'm going to show you a picture of a fireplace in a moment. But I didn't have a fireplace in our house. We had a stove and we heated the house with that stove. It didn't get very warm upstairs where the bedroom was, but it was warm downstairs and we kept warm with that. And behind the stove we put this rack. Now that rack was my great-grandmother's. It had been in our family a long time. And we had it and I have it now. I'll show it to you next week along with something else that we used as well. Anyway, she talked about stockings and she'd heard about hanging stockings on a tree, or not on a tree, on a fireplace. I have a stocking here. This is a pretty fancy stocking, isn't it? This is from Sesame Street years and years ago when my kids were little. And you've got the Sesame Street character there, and it talks about Merry Christmas. That's a pretty I don't think people would wear this stocking, although you could get your hand in it and go all the way down, so you could wear it. But that's a stocking. I got another stocking here. A baby might be able to get their foot in that, but not very much. But there's a stocking, but it's fancy. Yeah, it's pretty fancy. And so she wanted to get stockings. Well, she had some, but she said, Mom, can I hang up a stocking by the fireplace? Because that's how she kept warm. 70 years ago, there were fireplaces in many houses, although ours had a wood-burning stove in it, and that's how we kept warm. But Mom said, I'll take you tomorrow to the 5 and 10. Now, you've never probably ever heard of a 5 and 10, but there were a lot of 5 and 10s. They were called 5 and 10s, although they had things that could cost $1 and more, but they had things for a penny. And 5 and 10. And in this 5 and 10 that she went to, now some of the 5 and 10s, well, that I knew of when I was a kid, one was F.W. Woolworth's, 5 and 10. Another one was J.J. Newberry's, 5 and 10. Another was Kresge's, 5 and 10. There were a lot of them. Kresge eventually became Kmart. And Woolworths became Woco, but there's no Wocos around and there's very few Kmarts around anymore. Walmart and other stores kind of outbid them. But this was back in the days and they went to a 5 and 10. Now here's something for 15 cents at the 5 and 10. A Christmas decoration that you could buy and put on your tree. But look at the stockings. You could buy them and you could decorate them. And so she went to the 5 and 10 for 10 cents. You could get a stocking and decorate it. And so she wanted to go get a stocking so she could hang it up by her chimney. And so she got to go there and she picked out a stocking. Now which one would you pick out? A red one, a green one, a blue one, a yellow one? Which one would be your favorite? These two are both red and they have some other colors on them, but they're both red. What one would you pick out, you think? There was something added to it. You could have your name written on the stocking. Now, what name do you suppose Peggy was going to put on her stocking? Yeah, of course, it was going to be Peggy. But she said, Mom, we got to get a second stocking. Got to get a second stocking. Why? Well, next week we're going to find out why she wanted to get 2 stockings. Okay? But I have a song that I want to sing for you and sing with you. Whoops, I'm losing my antlers here. We're going to back on. And this song is called Down to Bethlehem, to a manger rootin' bare. Came the Son of God to the view of shepherds there. This is a nice little song. I'm going to teach you a verse and a chorus to this song. And then we'll sing it again each week as we get closer and closer to Christmas itself. All right? Down to Bethlehem, to a manger rude and bare, came the Son of God to the view of shepherds there. Wise men from afar came to see the King. followed long a star, and gifts to him did bring. Oh, he's the king, he's the king, he's the King of kings. Born one night in Bethlehem, angels of him sing. He's the king, he's the king, he's the King of kings. Born one night in Bethlehem, angels of him sing. How about that? That's a good song. Down to Bethlehem came the King of kings. Born one night in Bethlehem, to the view of shepherds. They came to see this baby Jesus. And angels told them about it and said, you got to go and see this. This is something worth going down to Bethlehem to see. And they came down and they saw that baby. Remember we talked about, Peggy knew about the story in the barn and the manger, and that's where they came. Came and found a baby there. Yeah. And next week we'll sing another verse. We'll sing this same verse. Down to Bethlehem came the baby to a manger rooted bare. Angels brought that message. Said, I got good news for you. You got to get down to Bethlehem and see this thing. And they did. They did. So special. Christmas is a special, special time. And next week we're going to find out why Peggy wanted to get 2 stockings to hang by the chimney with care. All right? Let's have a prayer. Father, thank you for this day you've given to us. Thank you for loving us so much and giving us this Jesus who came to Bethlehem so that we might someday be with you in eternity forever. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Bye-bye, boys and girls. See you next week.